Hey guys, hope you had a great Easter. Today's video, I'm going to go over the top 10 stories in AI that I think are the most important and impactful, and the ones I'm watching the most closely over the next coming years. First, I'm very interested to see how the enterprise agent layer continues to evolve over this coming year. First of all, OpenAI announced the Frontier. Frontier is a always-on employee agent kind of infrastructure for companies to deploy agents at scale as employees. It allows them to connect to different MCPs, different knowledge banks, and run them kind of autonomously on behalf of the company. They're using 4 different consulting companies to implement. They're using McKinsey, BCG, Accenture, and Capgemini. It's also apparently model agnostic, which is interesting. I imagine this will be the first kind of most mainstream layer of this agent orchestration for businesses, and also probably the most accessible, being that it's already built into the OpenAI ecosystem. Also, there's Claude Cowork, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with by now. It's kind of the Claude Code for knowledge work that allows people in consulting or marketing or whatever industry to have the same autonomous functionality of Claude Code, but do things like send emails, write marketing content at scale. But there's also a new really interesting development as of today where Anthropic announced Project Glasswing, which is a new model called Mythos, Claude Mythos. They're actually not releasing it to the public. It's allegedly too dangerous as a cybersecurity risk. So they're restricting it to 12 different partners, and they're letting those 12 partners kind of deploy it as a cybersecurity layer at first to test it, find errors, and make sure the cybersecurity is safe before they allegedly or hopefully announce it and release it to the public. But in short, I think that whichever company is able to kind of develop the first mainstream, most widely adopted way to configure agents for your organization at scale, I think is going to be incredibly profitable, and it's going to be a major moment in AI for this year. I think it happens this year. Personally, I think Frontier may be it, but I'm sure Anthropic is going to kind of fight back with their own competitor and competitive feature to that. The next one that I think is a big story is the Agent SDK. The Agent SDK is Claude's new configuration for building agents, and these agents work exactly the same way as Claude Code does. So you give them access to your files, you give them access to different commands, terminal commands, tools, web search. They can also call skills, and you can chain them as well. So you can have an orchestrating agent and agents below and call sub-agents as well. So this is a new kind of framework that's released in the past year. And this comes after what used to be the most mainstream adoption, which was LangGraph and Crew AI, which were a bit more complicated, a lot of code and configuration. And you really had to kind of build the harness around the agent, telling it, memory, tools, conditionals, but these were a bit harder to configure. And Anthropic is doing this right out of the box for you with a few lines of code, simple Python or TypeScript, and it's a bit easier to configure. And I'm sure most people nowadays will just use Claude Code to build these Agent SDK agents as well. The next story that I'm extremely interested in over this coming year is the self-improvement loop, which is recursive self-improvement. This is essentially just AI that improves AI. From what we've heard, I don't think it's been done yet at scale or has been achieved fully yet, but all signs point to them being close. Once this happens, people theorize that once the AI can improve the AI, we're going to see a massive takeoff in intelligence. Also, the Frontier Labs are trying to develop AI researchers that they can use to research alongside them, help find discoveries and breakthroughs while they train their models. These are things that we don't know how soon they're going to happen, but once they do, it's going to trigger a takeoff and likely rapidly accelerate the production and the development of these AI models. Another major story is the Chinese open source market for AI models. So I'm sure many of you have heard of DeepSeek. DeepSeek released, I think, two years ago. It sent waves through the AI industry because they claim to have only used tens of millions on training and inference as opposed to the billions that OpenAI and Anthropic have spent. This since has been heavily questioned and criticized, but the reality is these open source models from China like Qwen and DeepSeek and Minimax and GLM are extremely cheap, and they're rapidly catching up to the frontier models and giving probably about 80 to 75% of the performance at much lower costs and model sizes. And these open source models allow people to run the models at home on their desk in like a Mac Studio or the NVIDIA Spark. The reason why this is important is because it's allowing people to own their compute, run models privately at home, and it's putting pressure on the frontier labs where they need to keep improving, they need to keep offering these models to the public. And it's reassuring to the public and the consumers that there's always an option that while it may be expensive to run these, there's always an option for personal intelligence that they can run at home that can't be turned off by the major labs. And I know for a fact that many people are using these models in platforms like OpenCode, and they're much cheaper to use as agents as well. People love to use these models as kind of a cheaper token, a less token intensive sub agent while they use OpenClaw or other agent harnesses. So overall, these open source models have been a big benefit to the AI community. Granted, there are some privacy and security concerns, but there's ways to run the models off US-based hosted servers. Next, I'm really interested to see how the enterprise data layer continues to evolve with AI and agents. Players like Snowflake and Databricks are already integrating AI into their data platforms. And I think this will only increase. Really interested to see in a year or two, or even sooner, how well they're able to integrate AI into their platforms. And I think, as always, the better the data and the more context you can give the agents, the better they'll perform, which is why Databricks and Snowflake are very well positioned for the future of AI and helping businesses. Next, the GPU arms race. The reason why I'm very interested in this is because the Claude Mythos I mentioned earlier is allegedly the first model to be trained on the new Blackwell Ultra B300s. So these chips are much more powerful than whatever the other models were trained on. I know there's a previous generation, the H100s, that were trained with the GPT-4 and the GPT-5 models. Now we have this huge step up in compute capacity and intelligence with the chips. Whatever models are coming next from Anthropic or OpenAI are likely going to be trained on these newer clusters, which is going to result in much higher intelligence scores and capacity and higher parameter models. As you can see, inference has gotten 30 times better since the H100 baseline. And people speculate that by the time they get to the Rubin generation, it'll be another 3.5 times better with training and 5 times better with inference. In short, Claude Mythos and Claude 5 are likely trained on these new Blackwell Ultra 300s. OpenAI's Spud, if you've heard of that, it's their GPT-6 codename, will also be on newer models as well at Stargate Abilene. So these will also see a big bump in compute. People might not be ready for the intelligence gains we're going to see as we transition over to the better equipment and the better clusters over these next few years. Tesla. Why is Tesla important? Well, they're trying to develop a robot at scale called Optimus. Elon himself wants to have Optimus robots in every home and sell them at a price like $30,000, $40,000, and have this be a new norm where we use humanoid robots daily to do chores. As Elon continues to develop his AI models, this should only lead to improvements with full self-driving and also Optimus robots. Also, as you can see here, there's a bit of a back and forth between Tesla and Waymo that I'm sure you've heard about. Elon's betting that the AI plus the camera technology is gonna beat the LiDAR technology of Waymo in the long run. So we'll see if Elon's able to harness the AI, build world models to train Optimus and to train full self-driving and generate synthetic data to kind of rapidly increase and take off the capabilities of these robots and the full self-driving systems. Another major story I'm really interested to see is the next election. If the next 2 years show a lot of job loss, a lot of knowledge work, destruction, and the economy is plummeting, I think that AI will be a major conversation in the election. And I think if we see the worst case scenario regarding AI and job loss, that I think whichever party runs on AI restrictions or slowing things down or protecting workers from layoffs, I think they will win the election. Just knowing people and what they care about. I think whoever can frame this the right way, the next election, assuming that there's a drastic change in the economy and the job market, I think will win. Next, the super underrated one is Apple and the way they've handled their AI. They chose to not spend billions on developing models, and instead they just waited, and everyone criticized them. But now they just announced they're going to allow third-party extensions to run on iPhones, which will let you choose any model you want with Siri and on your phone. They also made a deal with Google to use Gemini models as well to help train their new model they're working on in the future, and also to power their on-device models. It's a win for the consumer. You can pick any model you want on the iPhone to use through your apps. It's also a win for Apple. They save billions in dollars of training and research and get to base their new model off of Gemini. Also, Apple's proved to be the best consumer hardware to run AI models locally with their Apple Silicon chips and their MLX graphics acceleration. I know a lot of people are buying Mac Studios and running Chinese models on them. People are buying Mac Minis for OpenClaw. And also the MacBook Pros are extremely powerful and capable for AI models locally as well. It remains to be seen what happens, but you can make a strong case that Apple may have won the AI race by not spending billions or trillions on AI development. Instead, have opened up the best possible distribution layer for AI for their consumers and their customers. Next, the compute strain. As we know, all the labs are extremely tight on compute. We've seen Anthropic have to cut rate limits earlier this year. And it's interesting because Anthropic has announced today that they're at 30 billion run rate, this may have surpassed OpenAI. It seems like they've increased from 9 billion at the end of last year to 30 billion this month. So a 21 billion increase in about 4 months. OpenAI recently closed down their Sora development to save compute, which I think is the right move. Nobody wants to see those terrible AI slop videos. We want to put that compute to the next models and push the frontier. But yeah, Anthropic positioned themselves with the corporate market. It's paid dividends. OpenAI focused a bit more on images and video in the consumer market, and they're falling a bit behind. Lastly, Anthropic just secured 3.5 gigawatts of more compute from Google and Broadcom, so this will help them as well with their compute constraints. Additionally, TurboQuant from Google found a breakthrough on how to cut the costs of running the models locally by 3 to 4 times, allowing people to run bigger models on their laptops and on their computers. And this should also help save a lot of compute during training and inference as well. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Let's take a look at them. I'll keep you guys updated on what's going on, but appreciate you guys watching and hope you have a good one. Thank you.